Hello everybody, my name is Furhad, and today we're going to be talking about everyone's least favorite app, TikTok. Now look, I know I hate on TikTok a lot on here, but the appeal is so great, it transcends anything I have to criticize it for. But that doesn't mean I won't criticize it. So the latest in a never-ending cycle of scandal and outrage is TikTok's latest obsession, aesthetic beige. It really stemmed from the word aesthetic, but as an aesthetic. We'll get into it. So let's start with the obvious. What is aesthetic TikTok? The word aesthetic has actually turned into its own category on TikTok, with the hashtag aesthetic having well over 195 billion views on the platform. And that's at the time of me filming this. So I'm sure by the time I upload this, it's going to be close to 200 billion, if not past 200 billion. And I've been on the internet for a long time, as I'm sure many of you have. The word aesthetic has actually had a really long history on the internet to describe a style, an essence, or a visual. Personally, and this may only be relevant to the other Australian millennials who grew up in the same time period as me, but I really remember a time in the late 2000s / early 2010s when it was men who were mostly using the word aesthetic to describe the ideal male body. Men who basically wanted that kind of roided up Marvel superhero body. Full muscles, no fat, aesthetic. There was also a shorter way that they used to say aesthetic, but I can't for the life of me remember what it is. So if anyone remembers, please write it in the comments below. And I remember that really well because I was in high school and I was in my art class, and I remember realizing that these men were using the word aesthetic incorrectly, and it made me really angry. I could sit here and try and describe it to you, but as local Melbourne celebrity Troye Sivan very eloquently said,
the word aesthetic, you can't look aesthetic. You can look aesthetically pleasing. There is an aesthetic. You can have an aesthetic. An aesthetic could be any. Like this photo is so aesthetic. Which aesthetic?
So the word aesthetic has kind of traveled between circles. Obviously, it's been used in the art community for centuries. And the word then traveled from gym junkies in Australia to the progressives on Twitter, and is now available for mass consumption through TikTok.
That feels like an oversimplification.
On TikTok today, we see people refer to a certain style as an aesthetic. For example, the cottagecore aesthetic, or the Barbiecore aesthetic, or perhaps most notoriously, the that girl aesthetic. If you haven't seen my previous videos about the that girl trend, you can check them out in the video description below. But the word itself has started to be used on its own among Gen Z. So people will now say, that's so aesthetic, as opposed to saying, that's so cool, or that's so nice, or whatever else. So the word has kind of evolved into an adjective to describe someone or something, as opposed to describing a sense of something or a style of something. So to help us visualize the concept, I want to refer to one of the most popular aesthetic TikTokers, Kaili Mae. Now, I want to preface this by saying I'm only using Kaili as an example because she's so clearly very successful at what she does. I mean, absolutely no shade to her. I mean, absolutely no shade to the people who like her content. There's nothing wrong with her content. I want to make that very clear. I just want to use her success to describe the ongoing trend, because when you see a TikToker or a content creator become popular for a certain style, lots of other people will begin to emulate that style or thing so that they can feed off the engagement that the original content creator probably gets. So Kaili, who has over 13 million followers on TikTok, which is just crazy to think. So she's known for using the word aesthetic as both a hashtag and as a visual style to all her videos. And she's done this really successfully because it's helped her brand herself. It's helped her make her really noticeable. You can notice one of her videos once it pops up in your feed as soon as you see it. From making her bed to pouring a coffee to even restocking her diabetes medication. Kaili's videos all have the quintessential element of the aesthetic style. It's clean, it's tidy, it's got a very beige color palette, and I've talked about a lot of these things in my That Girl video, so again, check them out after this video if you haven't seen them before. But Kaili's videos are unquestionably engaging, right? She's got a real knack for creating beautiful imagery, making the mundane seem quite exciting. They have a very soft color palette. There's a slowness to them which almost invites you to pause and reflect, and they kind of cover the mundanity of everyday life and inject a sense of wonder and excitement amongst the everyday. Quite genius when you really think about it. If you have the ability to make everything you do seem aesthetic, you're golden. So Kaili has posted videos of her morning routine, her recovering after a night out, cleaning her home, restocking her pantry, and perhaps most egregiously, doing her taxes. Yeah, it takes a real skill for someone to make doing your taxes look aesthetic. So props to her for managing to do that. So Kaili really leans on aesthetic as an aesthetic with a heavy presence of neutral tones, particularly beige, which brings us to the color beige. If you watch Kaili's videos, or really any of the other girlies on TikTok who are aiming for that categorically defined girl aesthetic, like the clean girl or that girl, you'll notice a lot of beige. There's a certain minimalism to it, a real lack of saturation and vibrancy in everything that's visible on camera in that piece of content. And look, perhaps it's intentional. As color psychology specialist and author Karen Haller says, we live in a world that's full of noise, chaos, and clutter. Finding softly colored, minimalistic clips like this on social media can serve as a micro moment of joy and safety. And that's nice. It's good to be able to find that comfort from mundanity and from the everyday life. But there has also been a bit of a backlash to it, which is not surprising because it's TikTok and it's the internet, and the internet finds everything to complain about always. But there has also been a bit of a backlash to the color beige reflecting modern style values. And in particular, the sad beige baby comes to mind. Really late last year, there was a big rise in the sad beige baby, which was a trend of muted beige tones that new parents would go for when buying their babies clothing, toys, or decorations for their room. And of course, everybody made fun of that because it was almost like you're sucking all the joy out of childhood. Now, some parents did claim the prominence of beige was due to the fact that it's a very calming color and that it would promote gender neutrality, which is great. But I can only think about how difficult it would be to get stains out of beige baby clothes, I could barely get stains out of my beige clothes. According to Etsy, searches for beige kids clothing have jumped 67% year on year, which really does show the impact of TikTok and these trends that are bleeding into everyday life. No doubt due to the prominence of things like TikTok and even certain celebrities like Kylie Jenner who are really pushing the beige neutral tones. Now, I'm not going to sit here and make fun of sad beige babies because they could do that on their own. But if you are interested in that, you can look up the sad beige lady on TikTok and I think on Instagram for some well-intentioned humor around the whole sad beige baby trend. But it's interesting because the beige aesthetic has really transcended through TikTok to everyday mums who just want to ensure that their newborn baby has a very beigey experience. And this kind of leads me to my next question, which is, are we perhaps romanticizing our lives a little too much? And I will admit, I have no issue with romanticizing your life in any way that you like. I know I do it as much as I can. But the thing that really got me was Kaili doing her taxes aesthetically on TikTok. Like, are we as a society really at the point where we're trying to make our taxes look aesthetic? Are we idealizing the fact that we're giving our hard-earned money to the government? Like, is this what TikTok is about? Creators have certainly faced some backlash for their romanticized neutral tone life. Certainly in the case of like sad beige babies, the idea of an aesthetic as an aesthetic has been ridiculed endlessly. One neuropsychologist, Amanda Gummer, very matter-of-factly told the Wall Street Journal, "I don't think my kid's favorite color is beige." Truer words have never been spoken, my friends. We're talking about a trend here that is so focused on giving the illusion of a perfectly aesthetic life, but kind of just feels like we're sucking the last bit of joy, color, and vibrancy out of children's lives. Like, is this gone too far? And look, ultimately, no one should be telling someone else how to parent, particularly someone like me who doesn't have any kids. So if people want to dress their kids in beige, power to them, that's their business. But I am interested in the intersection of like TikTok aesthetics and the ability to emulate those in our everyday lives. I've spoken before about the fact that inspiration drives loyalty through social media. So creators have an incentive to constantly showcase how beautiful and aesthetic their lives are, so that other people watching them, viewing them, subscribing to them can continue to watch and follow and feel like they can achieve that same level of aestheticism. It's not a word. And I think part of it is psychological. As Karen Haller said earlier, the world is full of color and chaos. So softening our everyday color palettes can create a sense of security and safety and calmness, which itself isn't a bad thing. But I think the pursuit in achieving an almost unachievable aesthetic in your everyday lives can be quite a burden. Again, I've spoken about this in a previous video, but I'll quickly mention it again. It can be quite demoralizing, particularly as a young person, to continually see a certain lifestyle or aesthetic promoted through your social feeds when that particular lifestyle requires a bunch of products like nice coffee machines or certain types of brands or certain types of bed sheets or certain makeup lines or whatever else kind of makes up that sponsored post. It can be hard to see that sort of stuff, and it can be incredibly damaging to your self-esteem. And it makes me think back to the women's magazines of the early 2000s or like beauty pageants in the 1990s. We all look at those now and think back yeah, damn, that shit was messed up. No wonder women had so many body image issues and blah, blah, blah. Thank God we don't do that shit today. But we're almost allowing a very similar sense of jealousy and inadequacy and exclusivity through the use of a very particular style in social media trends. Trends that require you to make certain purchases to achieve that lifestyle, or trends that require you to have certain aesthetics that will require a financial or spiritual or emotional investment to achieve that lifestyle. Ultimately, the idea of aesthetic as an aesthetic will continue to be a huge marketing ploy on TikTok. It can be used to increase engagement to videos, it can be used to sell products, it can be used to market to certain demographics and encapsulate a mood through a video. The girlies will continue to post aesthetic videos and continue to incorrectly refer to things as aesthetic. Troye Sivan's not happy, guys. But I do think all of this is quite unfortunate because just a few years ago, we were all talking about how the perfectly curated, on-brand millennial aesthetic was dead. The stuff that you used to see on Instagram before TikTok took over, right? Perfectly curated photos, everything on brand, everything with a very certain color, everything kind of staged and posed a little bit too much. And instead, everybody was turning to a messier and unfiltered vibes. But it seems like we've come full circle. And once again, the vibe of the moment continues to be a very perfectly curated, beige aesthetic. And it's a shame because it seems like that return to uniformity has really leaked into everyday lives. For example, like the lives of all the parents of sad beige babies. These women have seen these things on their social media platforms and felt like it was necessary for their child to continue to emulate that style. Which again, isn't a bad thing, but I'm talking more about the financial burden it puts on people and the kind of emotional burden it puts on people too. Like the messier, unfiltered direction we seem to have been going in on Instagram and social media in general was quite exciting, Like you see people like Emma Chamberlain posting all these really weird photos and it couldn't be used to sell something, which was really, really exciting. And I think that's why people like Emma Chamberlain managed to do so well and increase their audience and increase their engagement because they were being truly authentic as opposed to curating something to sell something else. I really hope we can collectively start to allow a little bit more expression into our lives. I hope we start to see a lot more individuality in popular creators and trends. And I hope that no baby was harmed in the making of a sad beige baby video. Ultimately, it's up to us to be the change we want to see in the world, and I guess that's why I'm wearing yellow. It's pretty close to beige though. So let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about the sad beige baby? And how do you feel about the term aesthetic being repurposed as an aesthetic? Keen to know your thoughts, so let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you do leave a comment, make sure you write in the comments where you're watching from in the world. I really like to know where you all are so we can kind of feel like a global community together. As always, if you like the video, make sure you give it a like. It really helps my channel out. If you want to see more from me, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'm just starting to put out weekly videos again, and I'm very excited about it. Turn your bell notifications on because what have you got to lose? Nothing. And I think that's everything I wanted to say in this video today. So until next week, besties, bye. Missing someone